If you work out, you want to maximize all the benefits that you get. You don't want to go to the gym and do all that hard work if you're not getting every bang for your buck. Now, a lot of people are into fasting nowadays. So whether you're doing intermittent fasting, where you're only eating in a certain time frame every single day, and then for the rest of the day you're not going to eat, or if you're just eating one meal a day, or if you're eating once every 3 days, those are all different types of fasting. Now, I would argue that some are more of a legitimate fast, but it's not a competition, at least not in this video. A lot of people are wondering if it's better to work out or exercise when they're fasting versus right after they eat a meal. Now, why would anyone really care about this? And why would this even make a difference, whether you eat before your workout or if you don't eat for a while before you work out? Well, we all know what the goal of exercise is, right? Exercising is good for us, it's good for our heart, and it helps us be healthy. Now, when you're fasting, you're not eating. So there's no energy, there's no fuel that's going into your body. And the goal with fasting and exercising when you're fasting is you're trying to deplete your glucose. The hope is that as your body depletes all this glucose, and then you go and do some sort of exercise, now instead of relying on your glucose in your body, since there's no more, now your body will start breaking down your fat and start using that as its fuel source. So let's say, for example, you eat dinner the night before, and then you watch a movie, and then you fall asleep, and the next morning you just drink a little bit of water and you go straight to the gym. You don't eat anything. That would be an example of working out in a fasted state. Now, you could make this a little more extreme, where instead of skipping just breakfast, you skip breakfast and lunch, and when it gets close to dinner time, instead of eating, now you go and work out. It's still the same concept, but a little more extreme. Okay, so we know what the goal is working out when you're fasting, right? You want to shift your fuel source from your glucose to your fat. But many people also like it just because it's easier for them. If you're already intermittent fasting, it can kind of fit into your schedule if you're working out in that fasted state. And that can save some time too, right? Because now you don't have to prepare a meal. Let's say you're working out in the morning, now you don't have to prepare a meal before you go, you can just go straight to the gym. So I think that part we can all agree on. It can definitely save you some time. But what about the other claims? Is it actually true that you can start burning more fat if you work out in a fasted state? Well, actually it might. So as a fast will continue after a certain amount of hours, it is true that eventually your body will stop burning your glucose because you will eventually run out. And when it does this, it can shift from burning glucose to burning lipids or fat. And it does this because when we are fasting, we have higher regulation of certain genes. And these particular genes are involved in the breakdown of fat. Now, what about when you exercise while you're in this state? So actually, there's some studies out there that were looking at this. So they were comparing people who worked out or did some training in either a fasted state, where they never ate before, or a fed state, where they had a meal before. And what they found was the people who were fasting before their workout, they ended up suppressing more of their glucose metabolism, so they didn't break down as much of their glucose, but they had a higher breakdown of their fat. So basically, in this study, people who were fasting were more likely to burn fat after their workout. Now, also what's interesting is over time, working out in this fasted state can increase your mitochondria. So if you remember from biology, your mitochondria is the powerhouse of your cell, and it's responsible for your energy production. So having more mitochondria would make your workout more efficient, right? Because now your cells are able to use energy more efficiently, and it can even increase your workout. So remember how there were certain genes that were activated when you're fasting that will promote fat burning? Well, when you compare this to someone who ate before they worked out, there was actually a down regulation of these genes. So they had less of these genes being activated that would contribute to fat loss. And another benefit you can get from fasting and working out is it can even control your insulin levels. So what they found is people who ate before they worked out, after they worked out, they had a higher amount of glucose in their blood. And this would make sense, right? Because when you're working out and you need a lot of fuel, you would expect your body to have that fuel readily available. So you need that glucose available. But now when you compare this to someone who was fasting, that person that was fasting, instead of having higher glucose, they had higher fatty acids in their blood. Instead of using that glucose and burning that for energy, now you're burning fat. So one, that would control your glucose levels and keep your glucose levels down, and also would help you burn more fat. Now, a lot of these studies were looking at aerobic exercise, so doing things like cardio. But another study was actually looking at anaerobic exercise, so things like weightlifting. And when you compare people who ate before doing some weightlifting versus people who didn't eat before, so fasting versus non-fasting, they found that you had less growth hormone if you ate before your workout. And also, if you ate before your workout, you had higher somatostatin. Somatostatin is basically a growth hormone inhibitor. So you have less growth hormone and more of the hormone that gets rid of growth hormone. Growth hormone is very important for us, and as you would expect, it will help us grow. So if you're a child or you're still developing, it's very important for that. Now, if you're an adult, it's still important as well because it can help control your metabolism. So when it comes to our metabolism, there are definitely a ton of benefits that we can get from a fasted workout versus eating before we work out. But keep in mind that exercising in general will improve your metabolism no matter what. All these studies are showing is that you could get more of that metabolism benefit if you work out while being fasted. And depending on what your goals are, it may actually be worse for you if you work out fasted versus eating before. So one thing that can happen if you fast for a period of time and you start working out is your body can start undergoing gluconeogenesis. What happens here is now you're no longer using your fat as a source of energy, now you're using your protein. So your muscles, your protein will break down and convert into glucose as a source of energy. Now you have less protein available to build new muscle. So even if you're working out, your muscles will get weaker. So for a lot of people, if they're working out for a long period of time, even though they get their metabolism benefit and they might get more growth hormone, if they're working out and always being fasted for a long period of time, then their muscles might start to decrease in size. So what studies are showing is if you're interested in just burning fat and you're doing cardio, it's better to keep it a low intensity and for a steady state. So that way you're keeping your heart rate at a relatively lower rate than if you're going to super high intensity, but you're keeping that steady state for a longer period of time. Now, this muscle loss isn't true for everyone that's in a fasted state. It'll be more true for people who fast for a longer period of time. So people who will fast for 3 days at a time and work out that whole time, they will probably have more muscle loss than someone who does like an intermittent fasting, but still eats like 2 meals a day. So what other downfalls does fasting while exercising have when compared to eating before your exercise? Well, it could also affect your overall performance. So studies are showing that if you are exercising continuously for longer than 60 minutes, so a prolonged cardio-intensive exercise like running a marathon, then it's better to eat before. And they're showing that your performance will actually be better if you eat before this exercise. Now, when you compare this to a shorter workout, so something less than 60 minutes, there's really no difference in your performance. So is it better to eat before you work out or to not eat before you work out? Well, really, there's no right answer. It depends on what your goals are. If you are planning on doing a marathon and you have to do this exercise or this aerobic exercise for a long period of time, then it's probably better to train while eating before and also perform while eating before. But if you're trying to control your metabolism and actually speed up your metabolism, then studies are showing that it might be better to fast before you work out. Now, does that mean that you absolutely have to switch what you're doing? Like if you're so used to working out after you eat versus if you're so used to working out when you're fasting, does that mean you should completely change what you're doing? Well, no, because your body's already so used to that. Just because it worked for someone else and worked in these other studies, it doesn't mean that it will work for you. For example, if you are training for a marathon and every day when you're practicing or when you're running, you never eat anything before, but now your marathon's tomorrow and you decide, I'm gonna have a big bowl of spaghetti before I go out and run. Well, your body's not going to react too well because it's not used to that. It's just not used to having that big bowl of carbohydrates in its body while it's running. At the end of the day, just know if you're exercising, it's good for you. And if it's going to be really hard for you to change your whole plan, and start eating before you go work out, or to stop eating before you work out, and this is gonna kill your routine, then don't do it. Just because something isn't perfect doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing it. Exercising is still better than not exercising. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you liked that video, and if you haven't already, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to my channel below. I will see you in the next video.